All right, guys. Okay, so today is day three of the 180 days full stack web development challenge. So, I don't know, man. This thing is not easy. Um, I'm in my finals week, so it's like it's not easy to find enough time. And it's not just even easy to go through 1.5 hour course content, even though I still like have idea of what I'm going through. Like it's not like I'm learning some Linux or or what would I say now? Which thing is very complicated? Let's say maybe AWS. Some some very far away stuff, right? So what I'm learning is something that I've already like I've literally gone through this course before. Yeah. I mean, it's good. I'm refreshing my mind with many things that I might have forgotten. And again, you guys will pardon me. I would apologize again today. I'm not going to be showing video today. I'm sorry, not video. I'm not going to be showing code today. Um, but I'll try as much as possible to talk about what I learned. And then when I have the opportunity to set up I'm planning to use some kind of streaming software so I can make it more interactive, be able to share my screen. I don't know. I think I can share screen here. Oh, that's true. I can actually share screen. Let me see. Window. No, I don't want to share entire screen. Let me see. Mm, mm. Can you pick multiple windows that you want to share, or it must be one window? Mm. It's still not going to make a lot of sense because this is web development. You have to be seeing you have to be seeing the result. If you see the code, you have to see the result. If I say entire screen, okay, let's just leave it till I'm able to really figure it out with um or get some more clarification. But it's cool that you can actually share like directly from here. That's really cool. Kudos to YouTube. Okay, so today what did I learn? I continued my CSS, um, and it was just basic styling of texts. So basic styling of text using CSS properties. Yesterday I showed how like I showed the technical terms for the different parts of a CSS rule, right? So we have the selector, we have the declaration. Um, is it the declaration box? Let me remind myself. Declaration block, not box. So we have that, and we have a a declaration, and then we have property and value, and things like that. So today we use those some of those CSS properties to style texts, like maybe um, font size, you know, changes the size of the text. So we used pixels. I believe there are other things you could use like rem and m, like rem, and another one that is just em. So the difference right now I cannot really say, but I should learn that. Let me write it down. M versus rem versus pixels. All right, so um yeah, so we use like font size, font style. I think font style is the one that makes it to be like italics or something. um and then we also went from styling, like using text related properties to like color. So we use colors, we use borders to change the width of the border, the color of the border, the style of the border. So whether it's solid, like just a continuous line, or it's dotted, or it's dashed, these are different values that you can give a border style property, I think. But we did not use the individual border style property. We used the border, like the shorthand, the one that takes in three values separated with space. So the first one is the width, second one is the style, so whether it's solid, dashed, or dotted, and the third one is the color of the border. So just simple styling, interacting with the HTML page, and all the different HTML elements on the page. And then after that, whether after or before, now it doesn't matter, but we also did like color. It's a few theoretical knowledge, theoretical lecture on color. So not just using color on the CSS, but like really understanding what it is. So we talked about, when I say we, I mean the course. Talked about what was it called, RGB, RGB, um, and then the hexadecimal Z code now. Let me see. Okay, hexadecimal notation. So I think there's another one that is HSL. You'd see it in VS Code if you use VS Code, but we did not do that in the course. We just did RGB and hexadecimal notation. So the RGB is basically red, green, and blue, and um, each of the each of these colors can be given a value between 0 and 255. So that's 256 distinct values, right? I think everything, maybe not everything, but like many things in programming starts with 0 instead of 1. Um, but also, you could also add a fourth, would I call these arguments now parameters? But you can add a fourth one that's called alpha. It basically handles the transparency. So I think 0 is like no transparency, and then 1 is like complete transparency. I hope I'm not mixing it, like maybe it's the other way around. Um, yeah, so we did that, even the hexadecimal notation. Um, the hexadecimal notation is also made up of 6 different characters. It could be a number or a letter, but it also represents red, green, and blue. It's interesting how colors are formed with these three colors, and I think it is because they are like, we call them primary colors, right? But there's a very slight distinction, or there is a distinction between colors in terms of paint and colors in terms of light, right? So I remember, I know that this exists because I did a subject called painting and decorating in high school. So it's been a while. It's been a while, like it's been years. Um, I cannot say the difference between the paint and light. Um, hmm, but I know there's a difference. I think in paint, when you mix the three in equal proportions, you get white, right? White, I think. Or is it black? I think it's black. Yeah, I think it's black. Yeah, I think it's black for paint. And then in light, when you mix the three, you get white. Mhm. So forget about that. That's not CSS. so so we did that, but it was interesting to just like delve into a few theory, and then we jumped into selectors. This was like the most interesting part for today. So CSS selector. So what is a selector? If you remember that image I was trying to show you guys yesterday, um, this image, I don't know why it can't be, it cannot just, yeah. So you see the one in yellow. Uh-oh. You see the H1, that's a selector. That's an element selector. So there are a few ways of select. I don't know if this is exhaustive, but there are like a few ways to select, to do selectors in CSS. So the first one is an element selector, which is basically just selecting the element by the name of the element. So in your HTML, if you have like a H1, you can select that H1 in your CSS. The only downside is you're not just selecting a particular H1, you're selecting all the H1s in your HTML document. You can also do that with like a P element, which is a paragraph element. You can do that with H2, H3. You can do that with basically anything, LI element, list element. That's element selectors. But then it has an issue, and like for instance, just like I said, if you want to select a particular H1 element, when you use H1, it selects all the H1. So if you want to select a particular H1 element, some you now introduce what we call classes. So you give it a class name, and then you can now select that particular HTML element with the name of the class that you give it. It must be the same word for word. Um, yeah, and then if you somehow want to have, I don't know the problem ID selectors are solving, but there's such a thing as ID selectors. It's basically, it works just like class selectors, like just giving the HTML element in an ID, and then you select it with that ID. The only difference I know of is you only have one unique ID per HTML file. So a whole HTML file would have just one ID. So if the ID is called counter, for example, you cannot have another counter anywhere. But for a class, you can have various counters. And then when you give that class a CSS, you assign that class that many HTML element has. You assign that class a CSS declaration block with many declarations. Everything in the HTML document that has that class attached to it takes on that styling. So it's really interesting. And then we moved on to like pseudo class. I talked about class, but there's another thing called pseudo class. So pseudo class is basically, how do I explain it? It's basically um, trying to select a class that has certain additional properties, whether it's implicit or it's or you give it to that element. For example, we did not do this, but I know it exists. Okay, let me just say the ones that we did. So if you have 10 lists in a HTML file and you want to select the list that is number 5, you can select that with a HTML class. Or you want to select the first list or the last list. There are unique things about it. If we add code to, if I begin to show you in code, there are a few unique things that you have to be mindful of. But I was able to use what's it called, ChatGPT, to help me understand the difference between the pseudo class that is called ent child and the pseudo class that's called ent ent is it ent type child or ent type of. I don't know if I'll be able to check it without this live going off. uh, yes, ent child and ent of type. Okay, yeah, ent child and ent of type. So I was able to use Chat GPT to help me understand the difference. Um, So yeah, that's what we learned today. So yes, today I could not reach 1.5 hour course content. I think I did like 72 minutes. But that's close to 90 though. So I have a backlog now that I have to, just like the first day, that I have to catch up on tomorrow. And I have two finals tomorrow. So um dang, we'll be fine. So that's what I learned today. And then tomorrow we'll continue with the, I think what we're going to be doing tomorrow is like, can't remember. It has to do with like select more. Is it more? Yes, yes. Like it's still pseudo class, but um using like hover, active, things like that that a button class can have. Um. Yep. All right. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye bye.